Okay, so we're live. Let's get this started. Okay. 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 All right. Okay. So trying to set some things up here. If you could just bear with me. Hmm. Okay. Cool. 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 All right. All right. Okay, so okay, okay, so all right, so we're gonna jump straight in. Okay, so meeting with President of Burkina Faso Ibrahim Traore. Vladimir Putin held a meeting with President of Burkina Faso Ibrahim Traore in the Kremlin. The head of the republic is in Russia on the occasion of the 80th anniversary of victory in the Great Patriotic War. Okay. On the Russian side, the meeting was attended by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential um, Executive Office Maxim Orishkin, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, Presidential Aide Yuri Ushahokov, Defense Minister Andriy um, Busov, Minister of Economic Development Maxim Ryshchenkov, Head of Federal Service for Oversight of Consumer Protection and Welfare, Anna Popova, and Director General of State Atomic Energy Corporation, Rosatom Alexei Likachev. We are delighted to see you before the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, Mr. President, friends. Okay, we are delighted to see you. Before we begin, I would like to thank you once again for your decision to take part in the celebrations marking the 80th anniversary of victory in the Great Patriotic War. Okay. I remember our constructive and productive conversation when you first visited our country in 2023 to participate in the Russia Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. Your current visit to Russia to attend celebrations of the 80th anniversary of victory is deeply symbolic and reflects the friendly nature of the Russia Burkina Faso relations. I would also like to mention your country's contribution to defeating German Nazism and its satellites. About 30,000 people from modern day Burkina Faso fought as part of the anti Hitler coalition in the Free France formations, led by the legendary son of the French people, General Charles de Gaulle. Okay. Today, we are united by a common goal of fighting terrorism and extremism. We will continue to help the Republic in restoring the rule of law and constitutional order and to assist in suppressing the radical groups that are still active in certain parts of Burkina Faso. Okay. Over the past 2 years, we have made significant progress in expanding mutual beneficial cooperation across various areas. In late 2023, after a pause that lasted, okay, that lasted over 30 years, the Russian embassy in Ouagadougou resumed its operations. A regular political dialogue was established. Even though bilateral trade remains modest, it is nonetheless on the rise, which is a promising trend that should, of course, be encouraged. We will work together to further strengthen economic ties and diversify mutual trade. The Burkina Faso Economic Days in Russia in October 2024, which were attended by a high ranking Burkina delegation headed by the Prime Minister, were beneficial in this regard. Work is underway to create an intergovernmental commission. A dedicated working group was formed in late 2024. We will continue to help your country in training national personnel. The Russian government scholarship quota for Burkina Faso citizens has been more than doubled for the 2024-2025 academic year. This year, we are prepared to take 27 more students from your country. The tuition will be covered from Russia's federal budget. In all, about 3,500 students from Burkina Faso receive their education in Russia. Okay, cultural and humanitarian ties have been promoted since 2024 by the Ouagadougou based Russia House, which offers Russian language classes, among others. Cooperation in healthcare and sanitation holds a lot of promise. On April 24th, 25, Ms. Popova visited Ouagadougou. We are ready to carry out joint scientific research, develop laboratory infrastructure, and train specialists. We prioritize humanitarian aid to Burkina Faso as well. Last year, we shipped to your country 25,000 tons of wheat free of charge. This month, a large shipment of other foods will arrive in Ouagadougou. We appreciate close coordination with Burkina Faso in the international arena, including at the United Nations and other international organizations. Okay. Consultations between Russia and the Confederation of Sahel States have become a valuable new cooperation format. The first such meeting took place at the level of foreign ministers in Moscow in April. I think our prospects are good across many areas. We have an opportunity to discuss some of them today. Okay. President of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim. All right. Hold on. Okay. President of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. Okay. Uh, Thank you very much. I am honored to be able to take part in the great victory celebrations. I would like to thank you for the invitation. It is very symbolic for us. I must say that during this visit, I learned a lot about the culture and history, which were the foundation of the resistance of the Russian people. I learned about the sacrifices made by your people, which made it a free nation today. I would like to thank you once again for inviting me. This particular moment and this meeting give us a chance to think about what is happening now and to think ahead. Today's obstacles should not stop us. To some extent, these obstacles even play into our hands because despite the sanctions that have been imposed against the Russian Federation by many countries, Russia occupies a prominent place in the international arena. And we take this into account. We understand that it is not easy. I watch soldiers marching in front of us. I saw the military equipment, including tanks, that took part in the Great Patriotic War, and I saw modern equipment as well. We would like cooperation between us to develop exponentially and to take new forms. We thank you for your attitude towards Burkina Faso. Today, I visited the Mandalay Institute, and we understand that in addition to defense and security, there is another important spirit, namely science and education. We would like Russia to help us educate our young people and teach them science so that we can develop our own production industry and engineering because it is very important for Africa. Okay. We believe that the terrorism we are witnessing today comes from imperialism and we are fighting it. If we put an end to this war, if we have a strong army, we'll be able to engage in developing our homeland. That is what we see as the purpose of our struggle. This is why it is utterly important to build and train staff. Very often in Africa, there are a lot of expectations, a lot of needs in terms of equipment and hardware, which is why we have much to do. We would like to ask for help, and the main thing you can help us with is transfer of technology and know how. We need to understand how we can spread the universities that exist in Russia to Burkina Faso, how we can open university branches in Burkina Faso to train our citizens, our students in a more practical way. This is our fundamental objective. We would like Burkina Faso to develop and for many students to come to us and to study science. We see the wonderful youth of the Russian Federation. There are many young researchers among them, and we would like you to share your experience. Okay. So that was the dialogue between um, Vladimir Putin and Ibrahim Traore. Okay. Okay. So we'll continue. Okay. Okay. So Burkina Faso leader Ibrahim Traore seeks stronger military ties. Okay, with Russia. Okay. Okay. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traore on Saturday called for deeper military and scientific links with Russia while on a visit to Moscow. The head of the African nation's military dominated government and President Vladimir Putin held a meeting at the Kremlin a day after they attended a Red Square parade with other international leaders. Despite all the sanctions Russia manages to maintain at the forefront of the international stage, it's a lesson for all of us, Traore said, also praising the Russian army's modernized equipment. Traore said his country had many projects with the Russian Defense Ministry, but did not give details. Under Traore, who seized power in a coup in September 2022, Burkina Faso has turned away from former colonial master France and moved closer to Russia. Okay. Russia has faced several sanctions since launching its offensive in Ukraine in 2022 and has undertaken a significant foreign policy shift, including by strengthening ties with Africa. Troy said he would not ask for military aid from Moscow at a time when Russian forces are engaged in Ukraine. Okay. But he said Russia could share its knowledge, help Burkina Faso educate its young population, and end conflict in the country where security forces are battling a jihadist uprising. And Putin said Russia would continue to assist Burkina Faso, suppressing radical groups and training officials. We are united by the common goal of combating terrorism, Putin said, also advocating stronger economic cooperation. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is the Gleaner. Okay. This is the politics of noise, the silencing of the Traore regime. Okay. Noise is political. The state's apparatus distinguishes between sound and noise, often employing security measures to suppress what it deems disruptive. This is especially true for black populations, whose expressions are frequently monitored and controlled. Okay? We find this apparent in various forms of African aesthetics, encompassing dance, drumming, and spirituality, which have historically faced prohibition, and stringent regulation. Okay. However, this can also apply to politics. Evidently, in the situation of Burkina Faso, under the leadership of Ibrahim Traore, his voice opposes the hegemonic Western influence on the country and attempts to unite both the country and the African continent. Okay. Ibrahim Traore rose to power in 2022 following a military coup, and at just 34, the charismatic leader became the youngest head of state. Traore envisions a free Africa that is less dependent on Western countries, championing Pan Africanism and anti imperialism. Okay. Critiquing the Francophone influence that controls a large Western Central Africa bloc. He expelled French troops from the nation, forging strategic ties with Sahel countries and Russia. He has ensured that the country remains independent and not reliant on the IMF or the World Bank. We saw how this translated during the 1970s in Jamaica with the eventual 1977 agreement, deepening inequality, intensifying political violence, and ultimately leading to the neoliberal shift of the 1980s. Okay. From the past, looking to the present, he embodies the revolutionary spirit of famed former leader Thomas Sankara during the 1980s, who, like Traore, promoted education, healthcare, gender equality, and economic sovereignty. With echoes of Sankara's vision, Traore's actions resonate deeply with Burkina Faso, particularly among the youth who see in him a leader committed to a genuine change. It is clear that Traore cannot be bought or become a puppet leader like those who have come before him, whose roles have merely served to allow the exploitation and dependency of these countries on the West. Okay. Underdeveloped, exploited countries. Throughout history, we have seen the silencing of black leaders who have opposed, questioned, and fought against the system. Many black leaders who made noise and attempts to mobilize the subalterns have been exiled, imprisoned, or in most cases killed. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Steve Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Sankara, and Kwame Nkrumah spring to mind. Thus, the notion of noise extends beyond the parameters of music to the pew. The masjid and political arena as always of uniting the masses. Okay. Their radical politics and worldview threaten the established order but continue to live on in the hearts and minds of many. In the age of independence, 1960s and 1970s, the post colonial leaders mentioned in the list from the African continent, attempting to break away from their colonizers in the United States, of course, towards self determination and liberation. Their dreams, unfortunately, never materialized under leaders whose sentiments lie with the West gaining power, leading to decades of political and economic instability. This has allowed corruption, civil war, poverty, and silencing of opposing leaders to flourish. Okay. The sentiment conveyed is that Africa is an impoverished continent with poor countries, a statement that could not be further from the truth. In reality, there is no such thing as a poor country. Rather, they are underdeveloped or exploited countries where Pan African and former Prime Minister of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, labeled the enslavement, pillaging, and colonial rule of Africa as a necessary appendage for European capitalism. This continued through the neocolonialism of the 20th century to the present, despite the proclaimed independence with the natural resources enriching Western nations and later multinational corporations. Solidarity demonstrations. In this context, Traore's rise to power and subsequent actions can be interpreted as a continuation of the struggle against neo-colonial forces and the effort to reclaim Burkina Faso's sovereignty. This raises the question of whether history will repeat itself or will Traore prevail. Okay. Where questions surround the viability of Pan Africanism in the 21st century, the struggle for self determination and unity remains a driving force behind the movements like the one led by Traore. Solidarity demonstrations have taken place in Jamaica, the UK, Ghana, and Liberia, advocating for Traore's leadership and condemning the West's attempts to not only destabilize his regime but also vilify him. Okay. His partnership with Russia echoes the Cold War when the Soviet Union supported African nations seeking help and solidarity. During that epoch, the West feared that African nations would side with their communist rivals, as history shows it repeats itself. With sanctions imposed on Russia, okay, following their invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Burkina Faso's alliance with Russia has caused further unease for the West. Not only does this disrupt Western hegemony in the region, but it also evokes fears reminiscent of the domino effect that catalyzed the Vietnam War. Although contextually different, the problem remains the same. The West fears alliances that oppose its order. Okay, our concerns for Ibrahim Traore's Burkina Faso are justified as history shows that leaders striving to disrupt dominant powers by uniting the people often encounter severe repercussions. We hope that Traore will succeed amidst the turmoil, allowing Africa to collaborate and achieve the potential envisioned by Africans and diasporas. Okay, Montel Gordon is a James McCune Smith, PhD scholar at the University of Glasgow, researching race and education. He is also a freelance journalist. Okay, cool. Okay. All right, so it's just interesting to see Burkina Faso's interactions with Russia and everything that's going on with Russia. Of course, Russia being involved in the Ukraine conflict. Um, currently in Europe right now. So now everything that is going on with Russia and the Ukraine conflict can potentially affect what's going on with Burkina Faso. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go into Russia now. Okay. Okay. So they've had this ongoing conflict. Okay, with between this ongoing conflict, right? Okay, between with what's going on with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. I believe this conflict started in I think it started in 2022, right? I believe, and it's been a long, slow, you know, slog. It's just been a long, slow, war. Um, but it just seems like it's been dragging on and on. I think that in the beginning, Ukraine stopped the initial Russian push, but I think in that, since then, um, Ukraine has lost a lot of ground, and they've just been slowly but surely losing more and more ground. And of course, I think Ukraine is in a bad spot because they no longer have the support of the as much support by the U.S. government. I know they were heavily supported by. I know that they were heavily supported by the previous administration. You know, but I think they've lost a lot of their support since then. Um, Especially with this new administration. With the Trump administration, I don't think that they have as much support from the U.S. government now as what they did um, under Biden. And I think that when Trump got elected, he took away their sensor link access. So they pretty much are fighting Russia blind now. You know, so they don't have access to all the sensor link data. So it's making it much harder for them to fight the war. So yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so I want to know in the comment, is my connection good? Because it says it's having issues with my connection, or it said it was might be having some little issues with my connection. Um, so just let me know if that's the case. Okay. Okay, so Zelensky challenges Putin to meet him after Trump demands Ukraine-Russia talks. Okay. All right. Okay. Says okay, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he is ready to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin personally in Istanbul on Thursday for talks over the ending the war. Okay. His post on X came shortly after Donald Trump demanded Ukraine agree to Putin's offer of direct talks between the two countries and Turkey. There is no point in prolonging the killings, and I will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday, personally, Zelensky wrote. He had earlier said his country was open to talks with Russia, but only after a ceasefire was in place. Okay. Well, Western powers called for a 30-day pause in fighting to begin on Monday after European leaders spearheading the so-called coalition of the willing met in Kiev on Saturday. Putin's offer of direct talks followed that intervention. Okay, on Sunday, Putin then posted on social media that Ukraine should agree to this immediately, and it would provide clarity on whether there was a way to end the war. Okay. At least they'll be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible. But if it is not, European leaders and the U.S. will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly, he said, adding, have the meeting now. Okay. In his post on X, Zelensky said he hoped Russia would agree to the ceasefire before the talks. We await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow to provide the necessary basis for diplomacy, he said. Okay. And in a late night address on Saturday, Putin invited Ukraine to take part in serious negotiations over the war, which began with Russia's full scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Okay. Putin said he could not rule out the possibility that the talks could result in Russia and Ukraine agreeing new truce, but did not address the calls for a 30-day ceasefire directly. Okay, the Russian leaders said this would be the first step towards a long-term, lasting peace, rather than rather than a prologue to more armed hostilities after Ukrainian armed forces get new armaments and personnel after feverish trench digging and the establishment of new command posts. Okay. Moscow has previously said that Russia, but before Russia could consider a ceasefire, the West must fire first halt its military aid to Ukraine. On Saturday, the Ukrainian president played host in Kiev to UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, France's Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Friedrich Merz, and Poland's Donald Tusk, who later called Trump to discuss their plan. Okay. Sakir later told the BBC the U.S. president was absolutely clear that their suggestion of an immediate ceasefire was a demand that must be met. Okay, appearing at a news conference with Zelensky, they warned that new and massive sanctions would be imposed on Russia's energy and banking sectors should Putin not agree to unconditional 30-day ceasefire in the air, at sea, and on land. Okay. Russia and UK last held direct negotiations in March 2022 in Istanbul, shortly after Moscow launched its invasion. Okay, more than 3 years later, both sides have agreed in principle to resume negotiations, but talks and a deal are very different things. Both sides seemingly retain their red lines, which are as far apart as ever. Okay. So it looks like that they're not really making much progress with a ceasefire, to be honest. They're not really getting far with that. Um, yeah. All right, so this is Politico. Russia burned down Warsaw's biggest mall. Okay, interesting. Okay. All right. Okay, a huge fire that burned the largest shopping center in the Polish capital, Warsaw, to the ground a year ago was set deliberately by people acting on behalf of Russia, Donald Tusk said Sunday. European countries, particularly those in the east of the bloc, have been plagued by Russian espionage in recent years. Arson attacks are another common tool used as part of Russia's hybrid warfare strategy. We now know for sure that the Great Fire of the Mariuliska shopping center in Warsaw was caused by arson ordered by Russian special services. Okay, Tusk said some of the perpetrators have already been detained. All the others are identified and are being sought. We will get you all. Okay. Tusk had said in March that evidence from Lithuania suggested Russia was to blame for the attack, in line with suspicions in Poland, but his statements on Sunday was unequivocal in assigning responsibility to Russia. Okay. The Lithuanian investigation found the May 9, 2024 arson attack on an IKEA store in Vilnius, as well as the May 12, 2024 Mariuliska fire, were set by Ukrainian citizens acting on behalf of Russia. So, Tusk wrote in March. A week earlier, Polish prosecutors had said a Belarusian refugee was responsible. Nobody was injured in the fire in Warsaw. Okay. So we'll continue with it. All right. So it says Trump predicts big week in Russia-Ukraine peace talks. Zelensky sees positive sign. Okay. London. President Donald Trump suggested imminent progress in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in a post to Truth Social early on Sunday, saying that he would continue to work with both sides to end Moscow's 3-year-old invasion of its neighbor. A potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine, Trump wrote. Think of the hundreds of thousands of lives that will be saved as this never ending bloodbath hopefully comes to an end. It will be a whole new and much better world. I will continue to work with both sides to make sure that it happens, Trump continued. The USA wants to focus instead on rebuilding and trade a big week upcoming. Okay. Trump's efforts have so far failed to produce peace or even a lasting ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, with fierce fighting and long range strikes continuing since his return to the Oval Office in January. The president has expressed frustration with both Ukrainian and President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin over the failure of U.S. led peace efforts. Okay, Trump's latest remarks come after Putin announced a unilateral 3-day ceasefire covering Russia's Victory Day celebrations, marking the anniversary of the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945. Ukraine, which did not agree to the ceasefire, said Russian forces repeatedly violated Putin's proposed pause in fighting. Putin's ceasefire ended on Saturday. Okay. Zelensky instead offered a full 30-day ceasefire on Sunday following talks with leaders of the UK, France, Germany, and Poland in Kiev. Zelensky said in a Telegram post that he and his fellow leaders agreed that a complete and unconditional ceasefire should begin on May 12th. Putin was not has not agreed to Zelensky's proposal, though in a Sunday statement offered direct talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul on Thursday. Russia is ready for negotiations without any preconditions, Putin said in a statement. There is fighting going on right now, a war, and we are proposing to resume the negotiations that were interrupt not by us. What's wrong with that? Those who truly want peace cannot fail to support this. In response, Zelensky said in a post to Telegram that Putin's offer was a positive sign. Okay. The first step in the real end of the war is a ceasefire, the Ukrainian president added. There is no point in continuing the killings even for a day. We expect Russia to confirm a ceasefire, complete, lasting, and reliable, starting tomorrow, May 12th, and Ukraine is ready to meet. Okay, so that's that. Okay. All right. And I'm bringing something up on Telegram. So I want to share this video.
A simple thumb trick discovered by NASA scientists could be the key to reverse.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so we're gonna watch this video, see and see what this.
The US government considers China to be the greatest threat to its global dominance. Now, this is a bipartisan position that is shared by both Republicans and Democrats. However, the difference is that Democrats, like previous President Joe Biden, also see Russia as a major threat to the US, whereas some Republicans, and in particular Donald Trump, do not see Russia as a threat. Instead, the Trump administration proposed that the US should try to partner with Russia against China in order to try to weaken Beijing. Donald Trump himself claimed just a few days before the 2024 presidential election that he could divide Russia and China.
You never want Russia and China uniting. We united them. It's a shame. The stupidity of what they've done. Well, I'm going to have to unite them, and I think I can do that too. I have to unite them.
Marco Rubio is a neoconservative politician who is serving as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor in the Trump administration. He's one of the most powerful people in the U.S. government. And in his Senate confirmation hearing, he insisted that China is the greatest so-called threat to the U.S., and he argued that the history of the 21st century will be determined by U.S.-China conflict.
The Communist Party of China leads the PRC, is the most potent and dangerous near-peer adversary this nation has ever confronted. They have elements that the Soviet Union never possessed. They are a technological adversary and competitor, an industrial competitor, an economic competitor, a geopolitical competitor, a scientific competitor now, in every realm. It's an extraordinary challenge. It's one that I believe will define the 21st century. When they write the book about the 21st century, there's going to be some chapters in there about Putin. There's going to be some chapters in there about some of these other places. But the bulk of that book about the 21st century will be not just about China, but about the relationship between China and the United States and what direction it went.
This is why Marco Rubio even proposed that the U.S. could possibly partner with Russia geopolitically. And of course, he didn't say the quiet part loud, but we know that the reason he wants to do this is to weaken China.
The credible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russians geopolitically on issues of common interest and frankly, economically.
However, the Trump administration is facing a big problem in its divide and conquer plans, which is that today, China and Russia are closer now than they have ever been. And this was further reinforced by a trip that China's President Xi Jinping took to Moscow this May, in which he met with Russia's President Putin, and both leaders emphasized that their relations are closer than ever. As Reuters noted in a report, China's President Xi described the two countries as, quote, friends of steel, end quote, and they pledged to raise cooperation to a new level to decisively counter the influence of the United States. In a lengthy joint statement, Beijing and Moscow called to, quote, strengthen coordination in order to decisively counter Washington's course of dual containment of Russia and China, end quote. Putin had invited President Xi to Moscow in order to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Victory Day on the 9th of May, the day when the Soviet Union defeated Nazi Germany in World War II. And of course, the Soviet Union was allied at that time with China and also with the Western allied powers. And in World War II, the Soviet Union and China made by far the biggest contributions to defeating fascism. This is why the Washington Post, which is a very anti-Russian newspaper, even they acknowledged in an important article published back in 2015 on the 70th anniversary of Victory Day, they said, quote, don't forget how the Soviet Union saved the world from Hitler, end quote. Historians have found that 26 to 27 million Soviets died in World War II, which is known officially in Russia as the Great Patriotic War. and 3/4 of Nazi casualties were on the Eastern Front at the hands of the Soviet Red Army. The Western Allies were only responsible for 1/4 of Nazi casualties. This is why even the former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who was a virulent anti-communist and a dedicated colonialist who oversaw many colonial crimes in British colonies, even Churchill admitted in 1944, quote, "I have always believed, and I still believe, that it is the Red Army that has torn the guts out of the filthy Nazis," end quote. But while a lot of that history is not known in the West, and Western governments have been trying to erase the very important contribution of the Soviet Union to defeating Nazism and fascism, that already is not nearly known enough in the West. But what's even less known in the West is the contribution made by China. At least 14 million Chinese people died in World War II fighting against the Japanese Empire. And for the people of China, World War II started 2 years before it started in Europe. It started in Europe in 1939. It started in Asia in 1937 with the Japanese invasion of China and the colonization and conquest of Chinese territory. And according to official Chinese statistics, 20 million Chinese people died fighting against the Japanese Empire in World War II. And the Japanese Empire also was at war with other parts of Asia, colonizing other parts of Asia, including Vietnam. And this is why top Vietnamese officials were also invited to Moscow to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Victory Day, of the defeat of fascism in World War II. Later on in this analysis, I'm going to talk more about Vietnam and the other countries that participated in this anniversary celebration in Russia. First, I want to further analyze the increasingly close relations between Beijing and Moscow, and I'm going to look at official statements made by Putin and Xi that demonstrate that the Trump administration's attempt to divide Russia and China are completely failing. Now, these statements were the official comments made by Putin and Xi at a press conference. A transcript of this was published by the Kremlin. You can find it on the Kremlin website from the 8th of May. Putin began by referring to Xi as his dear friend. And then Putin said that China-Russia relations have, quote, reached the highest level in history, being self-sufficient and independent from internal political factors or momentary global agendas, end quote. So that's Putin's indirect way of saying, okay, yeah, there's a new administration in Washington, and Trump wants to be friends with me, and he wants to divide us from the Chinese. That's not going to work. This is a momentary global agenda. Putin is saying that Russia's relations with China are much deeper and much more long-term. He continued, Putin said that, quote, the comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation between Russia and China are built on the unshakable principles of equality, mutual support, and assistance, as well as the unbreakable friendship between the two states and two nations, end quote. Putin then went on describing the many ways in which Moscow and Beijing have been deepening their relations. He noticed that there's been significant progress in Russian-Chinese trade and investment. He noted that China is Russia's leading trade partner, and this is very important. Putin emphasized that both countries are conducting bilateral payments in national currencies. That is, they are de-dollarizing. They've removed the US dollar from their trade. Putin said, quote, nearly all Russian-Chinese trade transactions are now carried out in rubles and yuan. In effect, a stable and resilient mutual trade system has been established, one that is reliably shielded from the influence of third countries and adverse fluctuations in global markets, end quote. So this is Putin's way of saying, yes, the US is trying to divide us, and the US is waging economic war now against China. Trump has 145% tariffs on China. The previous trade war that Trump started against China in 2018 has been escalated basically to a nuclear level. Essentially, Trump has declared a trade embargo on China. And what Putin is saying in this press conference is that third countries, i.e., the US, are not going to divide this deep relationship we have with China, which is at the best level we've ever had. And as an example, he emphasized that China and Russia are very committed to de-dollarization, and they're already doing basically all of their trade in their own local currencies. And Putin also explained how they're building more infrastructure to integrate the countries, including gas pipelines like the Power of Siberia pipeline. Now, this is a point that the Trump administration really does not appear to understand, because Trump insisted that he could divide Russia and China by offering a few political concessions to Russia. But the reality is that China is Russia's largest trading partner, and in the past few years, their economic relations have deepened very significantly, and trade between China and Russia more than doubled between 2020 and 2023. 30.5% of Russia's exports go to China, which is a massive increase from just around 5% in 2000. And similarly, 36.5% of Russia's imports come from China, which is an increase from around 2% in 2000. Moreover, Russia and China have very complementary economies. Russia is one of the world's largest producers and exporters of important commodities like oil, gas, minerals, foodstuffs, wheat and other grains, also fertilizers. And China needs a lot of food. It has 1.4 billion people it needs to feed. And China needs a lot of commodities, of raw materials, in order to manufacture its goods. China is the world's largest manufacturer. The United States, on the other hand, has deindustrialized its economy, and the US is now the world's largest producer of oil and gas. So in fact, the US is in many ways a competitor with Russia, fighting over global market share in the oil and gas market, and also in terms of agricultural exports, because like Russia, the US is a major exporter of food. So whereas the economies of China and Russia are very complementary, the economies of the US and Russia are not complementary. They're competitors. So the fact of the matter is that the US can't offer Russia what China is offering Russia. China is the world's manufacturing superpower. The only thing that the Trump administration can offer Russia is security guarantees and the promise that NATO will not continue to expand eastward. But Russia can no longer trust the United States because the US previously claimed that, and NATO continued to expand eastward multiple times. And the only other thing that the Trump administration can offer Russia is an end to US sanctions on Russia. However, Moscow cannot trust Washington because let's say another president comes in 4 years and reverses everything that Trump did and puts more sanctions on Russia. So Putin has made it clear that the political and economic future of Russia lies in deepening its political and economic integration with China and with Asia in general, with Eurasian integration, recognizing that Russia is now part of Eurasia. It's been kicked out of the West. And the statements that both Russia and China made about the United States during this trip were very strong. And as an example of this, President Xi published an article in a Russian newspaper in which he compared the US empire to fascism during the 1930s and 40s. President Xi wrote, quote, "The just forces of the world, including China and the Soviet Union, fought bravely and defeated the arrogant fascist forces side by side," end quote. And then the Chinese leader added, quote, 80 years later, unilateralism, hegemony, and bullying are extremely harmful. Humanity is once again at the crossroads, end quote. So this was a pretty clear implication that China was comparing the US empire today, which tries to dominate the entire world, with Hitler and Nazi Germany, which also tried to dominate all of Europe with plans to eventually dominate the rest of the world. In their diplomatic statements, Beijing and Moscow emphasized how they share many common understandings and how both countries are pushing for a multipolar world. And the Chinese Foreign Ministry emphasized that they signed more than 20 bilateral cooperation documents and, quote, the two sides are good neighbors that cannot be moved away, true friends, end quote. And they said that their relationship, quote, is not subject to restrictions from any third party, end quote. They're, of course, talking about the US. Now, here I'm going to briefly look at the comments that were made by President Xi in this press conference he held in Moscow with Putin. Xi Jinping emphasized that Russia is the country he has visited most frequently as president of the People's Republic of China. This marked his 11th visit to Russia. And Xi described the, quote, great growth and great leapfrog in China-Russia relations, end quote. And Xi described how they are facing, quote, global epoch-making and historical changes, end quote. This is a reference to a phrase that President Xi has often repeated, which is that we are seeing changes in the world that haven't been seen in 100 years. And he emphasizes that China and Russia are at the center of those changes. And what are they based on? China emphasized that they're based on mutual benefit and win-win cooperation. Chinese is a very poetic language, and Chinese officials often use metaphors. And for instance, President Xi described the high-speed train of China-Russia mutually beneficial cooperation. He added that they, quote, continuously promote an equal and orderly multipolar world, end quote. And that was a term that was used many times in the statements made by both Putin and Xi, multipolarity, that they're building a multipolar world. And as an example of this multipolar world, President Xi and Putin emphasized the importance of organizations like BRICS, founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, brings together Eurasian countries originally to focus on security issues, but since then it's expanded, and they now also focus on political and economic issues. And it includes China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Iran, which recently joined, Kazakhstan, and several other Central Asian nations. I mean, these are some of the biggest and most populous countries on Earth. And in this meeting in Moscow, Xi and Putin called to strengthen the SCO along with BRICS. So with these public statements, it's very clear that Russia and China are still very close partners, and the Trump administration's attempt to divide them is failing. It's not working. And this has been a strategy that's been discussed for years in Washington, with think tanks asking if Trump can pull what they call a reverse Nixon to divide Russia from China. This is a reference to the visit that former US President Richard Nixon took to China in 1972. He met with Chinese leader Mao Zedong, and essentially, China did ally with the US against the Soviet Union. But that was a very different political situation. That came after the very tumultuous period of the Sino-Soviet split in the 1960s. And at that time, the Soviet Union and China hated each other. They had ideological disagreements, political differences, economic differences, even military threats. So when the US allied with China in the 1970s, it was much more plausible because Beijing and Moscow were already fighting. Whereas today, the situation is completely different. Trump wants to do the opposite. He wants to ally with Russia against China, but Russia and China today are closer than they've ever been. And that was repeatedly reaffirmed by Putin and Xi. But also, the situation today economically is completely different compared to the 1970s. Back then, China was still a very poor country. It was not a major industrial power. Today, China is the world's largest economy, representing nearly 20% of global GDP measured at purchasing power parity. China's economy has been larger than the US economy since 2016, and China's share of the global economy continues to grow every year, whereas the US share of the global economy is under 15% and shrinking year by year. Moreover, China today is the world's manufacturing superpower, representing around 1/3 of global manufacturing output. We're no longer in the 1970s. China is one of the most advanced economies on earth. So why would Russia sacrifice its relations with China, its closest partner, in order to ally with the US when China is the one rising in influence politically and economically in the world, whereas the US is obviously declining in influence politically, economically? The US has deindustrialized. The reality is that China can offer Russia much more than the United States can. And this is why the Trump administration strategy was doomed to fail. And let's be clear here, this actually was not just Donald Trump's strategy. There have been many hawks in Washington who have fantasized about doing this triangulation strategy for years, including the late war criminal Henry Kissinger. Kissinger served as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor for Nixon back in the 70s, like Marco Rubio is doing in the Trump administration today. And in 1971, took a secret trip to Beijing where he met with Mao, and he set the stage for the US normalization of relations with China. So back when Trump became president during his first term, starting in 2017, Kissinger actually personally advised Trump to try to ally with Russia in order to isolate China. This has been popularly referred to as a reverse Kissinger strategy. However, I would actually say it's not a reverse Kissinger, it's just a Kissingerian strategy, because this is what Kissinger had always advocated for, going back to 1972, when Nixon visited China. And you can see this very clearly if you look at the documents published by the State Department's Office of the Historian. There is a very interesting conversation between Nixon and Kissinger in 1972. Kissinger said very clearly that after allying with China against Russia, later the US should ally with Russia against China. I'm reading here, this is an exact quote from what Kissinger said in 1972. Quote, "I think in a historical period, they, the Chinese, are more formidable than the Russians. And I think in 20 years, your successor," he's speaking to Nixon, "your successor, if he's as wise as you, will wind up leaning toward the Russians against the Chinese. For the next 15 years, we have to lean toward the Chinese against the Russians. We have to play this balance of power game totally unemotionally. Right now, we need the Chinese to correct the Russians and to discipline the Russians." End quote. That was what Kissinger said at the exact time when the US was normalizing relations with China. So, Kissinger was this Machiavellian imperialist. Everything he did was about expanding the power of the US empire. He described it as a balance of power game. So it was not a reverse Kissinger. This was always the strategy that was being advocated. And in fact, it was not just Trump who has tried to do this. Even the Obama administration tried to do this. If you go back to Obama's first term in 2009, when Hillary Clinton, another neoconservative war hawk, when she was serving as Secretary of State overseeing US foreign policy, famously in 2009, Clinton met with Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, and she famously gave him a red button, and they symbolically pushed the red button. And the US said that this was a Russia reset button. They were trying to reset US-Russia relations. Then 2 years later, the Obama administration announced its so-called Pivot to Asia strategy, which was essentially an acknowledgement that the US was preparing for a future war with China. The US empire wanted to move its troops and military resources out of West Asia, the Middle East, and move those troops and military equipment to East Asia to prepare for an upcoming war with China. And that's why they wanted to reset Russia relations first, so Russia would not be an issue, so they could focus all of the attention of the US empire on containing and weakening China. However, obviously this strategy did not work, and this was for a variety of reasons. One, the 2008-2009 financial crisis in the US, which was a wake-up call to many countries that the US financial system was built on a big house of cards, that the US economy was built on a big bubble. And furthermore, you had the creation of BRICS in 2009. Russia is the R in BRICS, it's one of the founding members. And then, of course, you had the expansion of NATO eastward, closer and closer to Russia's borders, which angered Moscow. And finally, you had the US-backed coup in Ukraine in 2014, which overthrew Ukraine's democratically elected president, who had been geopolitically neutral, trying to balance the West and Russia, and the installation of a pro-Western regime that vowed to join NATO, which was then followed by Western sanctions against Russia. And meanwhile, throughout all of this time, China is growing to become the world's largest economy and manufacturing superpower, and Russia's trade with China throughout this time is growing significantly as well. So all of these factors together made the US imperial strategy of trying to reset relations with Russia and pivot to Asia for containing China. That strategy failed, and now the Donald Trump administration is doing a last-ditch effort, the last desperate attempt to divide China and Russia, and clearly they have failed miserably. And you can see this very clearly reflected in the long joint statement that was published by the Russian government and the Chinese government. Now, there's not an official English language translation of this full statement, which is more than 8,000 words. The Chinese government published a version in Chinese, and the Russian government published one in Russian. However, the Chinese journalist Fred Gao published an unofficial translation of the full statement, and I want to go through some of the main points. He noted that this was quite similar to another 8,000 word joint statement that was published by China and Russia in May of 2024. However, this Chinese journalist, Fred Gao, highlighted two main differences. One of them is this new statement has more direct criticism of the United States. It doesn't just use vague language like certain countries, which is often what these statements say. They say certain countries are engaging in hegemonic practices. In this case, the statement says very clearly that they are, quote, resolutely responding to the US dual containment policy against China and Russia, end quote, and that both sides clearly oppose, quote, attempts by the United States and its allies to advance NATO's eastward expansion into the Asia-Pacific, end quote. So I want to spend a few minutes here going through some of the highlights of this very long joint statement. It begins reflecting on the history of World War II, known in Russia as the Great Patriotic War, known in China as the World Anti-Fascist War. And they noted that, quote, China and the Soviet Union, as the main battlefields in Asia and Europe respectively, stood at the forefront against Japanese militarism and Nazi Germany and their vassal states, serving as the two main forces in the fight against militarism and fascism, end quote. They noted that, quote, the defeat of Japanese militarism and Nazi Germany announced the bankruptcy of the fascist plot to dominate the world with anti-human ideology and completely shattered their attempts to enslave peoples of all countries. And what's related to that, which is very important, is China and Russia say that today we're seeing a resurgence of some of these extremist, racist, and fascist ideologies. And they wrote in this joint statement, quote, the two sides are committed to preventing the resurgence of anti-human, Nazi, and racial superiority ideologies, and will continue to jointly resist the beautification of Nazis and their accomplices, the rise of neo-Nazism, the revival of militarism, and acts that encourage various forms of racism, racial discrimination, and xenophobia, end quote. And of course, a big implication here is that the United States is reviving fascism and racism. In the second part of this joint statement, they emphasized that, quote, China-Russia relations have reached the highest level in history and continue to develop stably in all directions, setting an example for building a new type of international relations and becoming a model for cooperation, end quote. They emphasized that China and Russia have extensive common interests and their overall development goals are complementary. This is a very important quote here. China-Russia relations have unique strategic value and strong internal driving force, neither targeting any third party nor subject to the influence of any third party, end quote. So what they're saying here is that a third party, i.e. the US, is not going to be able to divide us because we have our own internal reasons, economic, political, military, that drive us together. We have complementary interests. And they wrote that they will, quote, always regard each other as priority cooperation partners, jointly resist any attempts to interfere with and disrupt the traditional friendship and deep mutual trust between China and Russia, end quote. So this is a huge sign they're saying to the world, and in particular to Donald Trump and the US government, you will not divide us. Going on, Moscow and Beijing discussed the various ways in which they are deepening their cooperation, including through the development of trade, deepening investment cooperation, energy cooperation, financial cooperation, including local currency settlement, that is de-dollarization, the construction of China-Russia border port infrastructure, industrial cooperation, the consolidation of industrial supply chains, and technological cooperation, including on scientific research and artificial intelligence, AI. Then, later on in the statement, Russia and China describe the many ways in which their foreign policy is complementary and how they see the world in a very similar way and want a multipolar world. They both upheld international law and the principles of the UN Charter, and they defended the, quote, international system with the United Nations at its core, end quote. This language is very important because what China and Russia are doing here is responding to the idea of the so-called rules-based international order, which is advocated by the US and its Western allies. And essentially, the whole idea of the rules-based international order is an attempt to replace the international law-based order. Because what are the rules? They're arbitrary, they're vague. In fact, it's the US that makes the rules and orders everyone else around. And the US makes the rules in the interest of the US and the West more generally, against the interest of the global South and the global majority. So China and Russia are clearly saying there is no so-called rules-based international order. There is an international law-based order centered at the United Nations, and China and Russia are defending that system. And both sides emphasized that, quote, building a more equitable and sustainable multipolar world order is the trend of the times, end quote. However, they added, unfortunately, quote, certain countries addicted to hegemonism and neocolonialism implement aggressive policies and limit the sovereignty of other countries and suppress their economic and technological development to protect their own privileges, which does not align with the trend of world multipolarity and democratization of international relations, end quote. So here, when they say certain countries, they're obviously talking about the United States. And they're saying that the US is trying to prevent the move toward a more multipolar world, which really means a more democratic world in which other countries have more of a say in international affairs and determine how global governance institutions should operate. What China and Russia are saying is that the US empire and its attempt to maintain global hegemony go against democracy. They're authoritarian, they're imperialist. And as an example of this growing multipolarity in the world, this joint statement names organizations like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, calling to strengthen its coordination, and of course, BRICS. China and Russia call to strengthen BRICS cooperation in the fields of trade, finance, minerals, digital economy, public health, technological innovation, artificial intelligence, connectivity, governance, and other areas, and promote BRICS countries to strengthen research and cooperation on bilateral trade settlement in local currencies, international financial architecture reform, sustainable development, and other issues. So, in other words, de-dollarization. What China and Russia are saying is that BRICS and these other institutions are platforms, vehicles for the creation of a more multipolar and democratic world order, one that is not completely dominated by the United States and the Western imperial powers that colonized most of the world and today continue trying to impose neo-colonial policies on the rest of the world. So what all of this makes clear beyond a doubt is that Russia recognizes that its political and economic future lies in deepening its integration with Eurasia, especially with China, but also India and other major Asian countries, and more generally with the global South, which now in Russia they refer to as the global majority because Russia is not in the southern hemisphere, at least geographically, but politically, economically, Russia is now part of the larger family of the global South as a political group, just like the West is not only a geographic idea. I mean, the idea of the West is a political construct. It's not geographic. First of all, the planet is a sphere, so there is no objective West and East. In fact, in Asia, many world maps put Eurasia and Africa on the western side, on the left side of the map, and they put the Americas on the right side. But anyway, the point is that Russia has made it clear that it's part of the global majority along with the global South. And we can see this very clearly reflected in the diplomatic meetings that President Putin held with world leaders in May on the anniversary, the 80th anniversary of Victory Day, of the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. One of the other major world leaders who joined Putin, along with China's President Xi, was Brazil's president, Lula da Silva. And Brazil, of course, was one of the co-founders of BRICS, and Brazil is the B in BRICS. Also invited to participate in the celebration in Moscow was Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro. Of course, Venezuela is a country that has been fighting against U.S. imperialism. The U.S. has imposed illegal unilateral sanctions and an economic blockade aimed at trying to destroy the Venezuelan economy. And the U.S. government has backed many coup attempts trying to overthrow Venezuela's president, not only Maduro, but also his predecessor, Hugo Chavez. And both of them were democratically elected. And yet the U.S. has constantly tried to violate the sovereignty of Venezuela. Also invited to meet with Putin in Moscow was the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, another country that has been a victim of U.S. imperialism for more than 60 years. The U.S. government has tried to suffocate the Cuban economy and the people of Cuba with an illegal unilateral embargo, a blockade that violates international law. And every single year at the United Nations General Assembly, almost every country on earth, except the US and Israel, basically every other country, votes to condemn this illegal US embargo and demand that it's lifted. So the fact that Cuba, along with Venezuela and Brazil, these Latin American countries, were represented in Russia, shows that this is a priority in Russia's foreign policy. But it wasn't just Latin America. You also had leaders from Africa represented, including the leader of Zimbabwe and the new revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, who is a young military leader who was inspired by the previous revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara. And Traore has openly called for resisting imperialism and neo-colonialism. He's a Pan-Africanist who has called for uniting the African continent against Western neo-colonialism. And he wants to unite not only Africa, but the global South and the global majority against Western imperialism. And the fact that he was invited to Moscow and had a one-on-one meeting with Putin was very symbolic. Also symbolic was the invitation of the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. Now, a lot of Palestinians have rightfully criticized Abbas, also known as Abu Mazen, for collaborating with the Israeli occupation. He's very unpopular, but the reality is that Russia recognizes Palestine as a state, along with many global South countries, the majority of global South countries, and even some European countries, officially recognize Palestine as a state. The US has been standing in the way of international law, unilaterally blocking the recognition of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. And because Russia has state-to-state relations with Palestine, Putin had to invite the internationally recognized president of the state of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas. So regardless of the many very real and important criticisms of Abbas by the Palestinian people, this was a very symbolic move, and it showed that Russia was reaffirming its support for Palestine. Moreover, the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam, To Lam, was also invited to Moscow and had a one-on-one meeting with Putin. And Russia and Vietnam said they're going to continue to strengthen their ties. They are very close partners, and the relations only get closer and closer. Now, this came just a few days after China's President Xi visited Southeast Asia and met with the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam. And Beijing and Hanoi signed more than 40 bilateral agreements deepening their cooperation. This is very important because what this shows is that Vietnam is not joining the US in the new Cold War that Washington is waging against Beijing. If you read US think tanks, if you read, for instance, the RAND Corporation, which is an arm of the US military, they all have been saying for years that the US should try to recruit Vietnam as an ally against China, to try to isolate and weaken China. Just like for years, the US has been trying to ally with Russia against China. And in both attempts, the US has failed. Vietnam has remained independent and non-aligned, and Russia's partnership with China is closer than it's ever been. So what all of this shows is that the Trump administration, previously before the Biden administration, then before that, the Obama administration, imperial strategists in Washington have failed in their attempt to divide China and Russia, to divide Vietnam and Russia and Vietnam and China, in their attempt to try to impose US hegemony on the rest of the world. What we see is an increasingly multipolar world, and the United States will have to accept that it's just one country among 193 countries in the world recognized by the United Nations. And yes, the US is always going to be a powerful country with a big population and a big economy, but it must accept that the rest of the world is sovereign. The US cannot be a global empire that imposes its hegemony on the rest of the world. But unfortunately, in Washington, you have US imperial strategists and policymakers who refuse to accept that reality. And that's why they're waging a new Cold War against China and trying to isolate and destabilize China to maintain their global dominance, which is going to fail, just as their attempt to divide Russia and China have failed. On that note, I'm going to conclude. I am Ben Norton. I'm the editor-in-chief of Geopolitical Economy Report. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Please like and subscribe. Please share this. I will see you all next time.
Okay, now we're going to have a look at Woody Myers.
Joining us now is Ojo.
Hold on. Yeah, I want to have.
I stand firmly with Ibrahim Traore. If they dare touch Ibrahim Traore, they will regret. We are ready to go and fight in the Burkina Army. Me, my old age, I'm going to fight in the Burkina Faso Army. All these people follow me and we're going to fight in the Burkina Faso Army. They should dare try to touch Ibrahim Traore.
Burkina Faso has recently become one of the most popular countries in the entire world. And it's all just because of one man.
Ibrahim Traore.
So the question is, who is Ibrahim Traore?
Ibrahim Traore. He is Africa's youngest head of state at 35 years of age. Ibrahim Traore became the transitional president of Burkina Faso following a military coup in 2022.
The people of Burkina Faso believe that he is the reincarnation of Thomas Sankara.
I'm beginning to see a replica or a replication of the late Thomas Sankara in him.
What do you think of your president?
Let's say I'm from the generation who got the chance to know Thomas Sankara.
Oh.
And I think I'm one of the luckiest generation. I am from the luckiest generation who is living like a second reincarnation of Sankara.
Oh man, we love him. We love him so much. He's the definition of a real leader. And his commitment to take us out of poverty and his commitment to take us out of insecurity is the main reason why we love him. And the way he thinks, the way he acts, the way he speaks, it's like Thomas Sankara. And what we will love, like, because what happened to Thomas Sankara, we don't want the same thing to happen to him.
Since the day I was born, I've never seen an African leader that is loved in his country and out of his country to the extent that the entire world is talking about him.
Ibrahim Traore is not going to be like Gaddafi Amanda. We are going to stand in solidarity with Ibrahim Traore Amanda.
We are here today to celebrate and to upkeep the work of Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso. We are in support of the president for the liberation of our black mother country, Africa.
That is really unprecedented.
Yes. We need to unite now. Yes. All our differences we must put aside. Yes. We are not our ancestors. Yes. This is our time. Yes. The time is now. Yes. Let's fight African. Yes. Let's fight for our brother. Yes. He has started. Yes. We need more leaders like him. Yes. The time is now. Yes. Viva Africa! Yes.
I've always thought uniting Africa would be extremely difficult, but never did I know that His Excellency Ibrahim Traore will single-handedly unite Africans in Africa and in the diaspora.
We are here today as African descendants in the diaspora. We are here supporting our African leaders coming together in one unity to show love, to show peace, to show joy and happiness to Mother Africa. The work of our leaders must take a page out of Ibrahim Traore's book that he has written now, The Changing of the Guard, to liberate our motherland.
I feel like the young man is breaking boundaries. The young man is doing an incredible job. Do you believe in the leadership of His Excellency Ibrahim Traore?
Yeah, I believe it. Because he said that, there are no country who develop under democracy. That is the truth. That's the real truth. Because if you see, you see those Middle East countries,
yeah,
there are no democracy there. People, they are doing things according to their culture. And the way they think and the way they do things. We are not European, we are African. And we must do everything based on our culture. Based on our mindset, our own mindsets. We don't need to copy other people.
A lot has been said about this man, and as an African creator on a journey to showcase African excellence, I guess it's time to visit Burkina Faso just to showcase excellence in leadership in Africa. Should I tell you all that it is possible? If it's possible, then why haven't you subscribed to this YouTube channel yet? I don't understand. This page should be having 2 million subscribers by now because we've dedicated all our time just to showcase the beauty of Africa. No, my brother, like this video before I continue. Oh, thank you. Subscribe now. Thank you. You are the best. Finalement, viens avec moi en route de Burkina Faso. Thank you. Thank you.
I see you live. Tell him.
Thank you.
Too much.
Thank you. I just love that. She just got to know me recently, and she see me right at the airport.
And I'm happy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. These are you with the fire.
I am super excited because I'm on a journey to look for Africa's most loved president. And this is me on a journey to go look for him. There's no appointment, but this is an exciting video that I just want to do. So we're just going to go to Burkina Faso with the cameras and just ask people, where can I find His Excellency? Yo, I never booked the business class ticket. I booked an economy, but they were like, hey, that's what I'm on the flight. Let's upgrade the seat. So here I am. Let me enjoy. As soon as you sit in this plane, you experience the excellence in leadership in Burkina Faso. Because can you believe it? So this was a direct flight from Accra to Ouagadougou, and it was made possible by His Excellency Ibrahim Traore because he purchased this particular aircraft that I'm sitting in, because prior to that, the airline was not operational until he came and said it's about time for me to invest in my country's career, and hence he bought this particular aircraft. Can you believe it? I hope you guys have liked this video because this is my first time here and I'm super excited, just like you, super excited that I am here. So we're gonna have a great time together, but once again, the goal is to look for His Excellency. So we're just gonna go with the flow, nothing is planned, so stay tuned in. This is why we say, like, anytime you're going to Burkina Faso, make sure you use that Burkina, man. That's a serious endorsement right there. Yo, I am super happy to be in Burkina Faso. This has been long coming, and I'm here. Good morning from Ouaga, as the people of this beautiful country calls the capital city, Ouagadougou. Listen, I am super excited to be here, but first impression, Burkina is currently under construction, and if you come back here in 5 years' time, you're definitely going to see a different thing altogether, because as it stands right now, more factories are being built, more roads are being constructed, and every corner of this beautiful city, which is the largest capital city, Ouagadougou, you see cameras installed everywhere. As I was excited to be in this country, I had to post to let people know that I am in Burkina Faso, and tell me what you guys want to see. And out of over 1,200 comments, 1,000 people are saying, please. You know what? Your wish has always been my command. So you know what I'm going to do? I have no contact of him. I'm just going to be in here for 10 days in search of Africa's most loved president. I'm going to go in the street just to find out some of the project that he's doing. I believe that we are all going to go with the flow. So come along with me. You know what you need to do in the comment section for me? Burkina Faso to the world. Type it.
Burkina Faso.
Hi. You know, I'm one of your big fans. Big fan? Big fan, big fan. I have been following you since, I don't know, depuis 2018. 2018. When you were in China. Oh wow! That time. That time. Are you from Burkina Faso? Yeah, I'm from here. Wow. I'm from here and I'm working here. Right here. Yeah. What do you love about Burkina Faso?
I love our president.
Your president?
Because our president is changing the narrative of everything in this country.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you trying to say that the country was not like this before he came into? power?
Of course. I think it is the first president to come to give our dignity that we deserve. I'm telling you.
That is so beautiful, man.
I'm telling you. So the most person I love too much in this country is my president. And we are very proud of him.
Which means that whatever we see online is so true. So people are saying that, oh, in Burkina, inside Burkina, you guys don't like your president.
No, it's not true. It's not true. That is that you see people sleeping on the street because of the president.
What do you mean? People sleep on the street because of the president?
The why people. There are people who gather every night to the Carrefour
roundabout.
Yeah. If there is something, they will call the people to come out.
This is insane, man. I am so exhausted. You know what? It's day one in Burkina Faso in search of His Excellency, and our car broke down right in the middle of nowhere. I feel like I'm stranded. Let me try and look for a car, bro. Or maybe I have to jump on a bike to go home. It's stuck in the middle of the road. I heard that you all sleep on the streets just to protect your president. Is it true?
Okay, first of all, it's because of the love they have for the country.
Because of what?
The love.
The love for the country? Okay.
Also, imagine they're sitting here and the president just passed and see them. That's kind of motivate the president. This is why they decided to go out and to be like, oh, if something happened in the country, they have to be alerted so they can react immediately in order to protect the president.
When did this idea begin?
Okay. So he said when Ibrahim Traore became president, they knew that the country has enemies.
Wow.
So that's why the population started thinking, what can we do to help our president to make our country develop?
Are they military men?
No.
You're civilian?
Civilian, yeah.
So does it mean that each and everyone in here is not being paid?
Yeah, they're not.
For the love of your country? For the love of your president?
They are not paid. Some of them are traders, like sellers.
Okay.
Some of them have their own work. So in the day, they work, and at night, they come here.
Today, the people of Burkina Faso have confidence in their government to the extent that most of them are currently invested in their country. And a typical example is Itawa, the EV assembly plant right here in Burkina Faso.
Grâce à notre gouvernement, nous, Burkinabés, nous sommes motivés à investir dans notre pays et de faire sortir l'Afrique au-delà des attentes et du monde entier.
You all saw the news, and I'm here to testify that it's real, not a fake news. This is one of the initiatives of His Excellency to industrialize his country, hence an electric car manufacturing plant in the country. So, what does Itawa mean?
Itawa is the name of a small village here in Burkina Faso, on the outskirts of Ouagadougou. So it's beautiful. They chose a local name for the name of the country, and the logo also something that symbolizes Burkina Faso.
It's really exciting to see that each and every name for a model of a car in here is actually a local name. So more like Tanakuru, the Sahel. What most of us saw was just one model, which is the first ever model that was created in the country that is called the Sahel. If you don't know, the Sahel region or the Sahel states made up of Burkina, Niger, and Mali. So this is electric.
Yeah, this is electric. Yeah, it's an EV vehicle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But one thing that I have to say is that when you have a leader that really cares about its people, he actually encourages more people to come to the country and do business. I'm here to tell you that Burkina is open
for business.
Thank you. The diasporans are returning to invest in Burkina Faso.
So my name is Patrick.
Yeah.
Patrick, and I'm the founder of Let's Go.
Listen, 2 months ago you established this business.
Exactly.
Where were you before?
I was in Turkey before studying.
And why did you come back?
I needed to. I saw the opportunity. I saw that we have a great president that is encouraging young businesses. So I've decided just like that to come and invest in my country.
What is that one thing that you say that you love about your president?
He's young and he knows what the people really need. You know, that's what I really love about him.
Wow.
He's a man for the people. He doesn't see any other interest like other than the nation interest. The nation.
You say that a lot of businesses are coming out in the country just because of him.
Exactly. Yeah. Investing actually in Burkina.
Yeah.
Burkina is one of the top countries I recommend to invest in. Yeah.
So you all should come and invest in Burkina. What is the name of your company?
Let's.
What is Let's Go all about?
It's a transportation transportation company, like Uber.
So it's more like a car hailing services.
A car hailing service. So except that it's only with electric cars.
That's even insane, you know, knowing that you live in a country with 24/7 sunshine. How is Burkina, bro?
Burkina is an amazing country.
Yeah.
For real, it's an amazing country. I was here now for 8 years, I think.
8 years?
Yeah. I'm going back most of the time.
So if you've been here for 8 good years, what are the changes that you've seen in the country for the past 2 years?
Plenty change, plenty. Because right now, there are no those, what do you call it? Now it is like you are in a kind of a revolution.
Okay.
And I think most African countries need that kind of thing. Really, really. Because me, for my opinion, for real, I think every leader must find like a path for his own people. Wow. It's very important. Okay, you see, like our president right now, Ibrahim Traore, he's doing a great job. And the population also understand. And it's like a communion, and that work. If there's something we think that I must tell my people, you come out and just communicate.
Ce que moi j'apprécie, c'est qu'il prend les décisions sans avoir peur. De ce côté, moi je suis d'accord avec lui. Et puis il consulte le peuple aussi. Il ne peut pas prendre la décision sans consulter le peuple.
And this one is very, very good. It's not every president who do that kind of thing. You see?
Yes.
So it's like people say that we are fanatic. It is not fanatic. It is what we are looking for. You know, African country. You know, as me, I don't know. As you also, I can say we travel a lot, and you see how people develop their country and the way their leadership and all those kind of things. You know, and we need that kind of leadership here.
You love your president?
I love my president.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think it is that easy to find someone who loves his country the way he does.
Oh, wow. You think he loves his country?
Oh, yeah. I think it's obvious.
Why do you say so?
You just have to look at how he speaks about the country.
Wow.
How he speaks about the people. He speaks with his people. The guy does speeches without speech. Like the guy talks without
a paper.
He comes straight from the heart. Can you understand that?
Wow.
And all the things that he's doing is creating the environment so that everything can grow.
I really thought this would be easy, but it's becoming more like a challenge. But if you know me very well, you know that I'm that guy who never gives up. So today is day 3. in Burkina Faso, and I'm just going to the street because this place is super busy, looking forward that at least one person would definitely give me a clue on how to find the president. Bonjour, ça va? Un minute. Tu le connais? Capitano. Oh, tu l'aimes? Beaucoup, beaucoup. Ah. Ooh. Tu le l'aimes? My goodness, my French is hard, man. Tu l'aimes? Wow. Okay, merci beaucoup. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, it's a bon president. Oh, wow. Ooh. Wow.
Ce qu'il a fait au Burkina Faso, on est content.
Merci beaucoup.
Que Dieu la longue vie. Oui. Que Dieu la longue vie. Oui. Ibrahim Traore, moi je n'ai jamais vu quelqu'un qui... Depuis moi je suis né, moi je suis né en 2003. Là, moi je n'ai jamais vu cette genre de président là. Il est magnifique. Magnifique. Ouais.
Merci. Like every corner that you pass in this country, you see His Excellency's picture everywhere. And this was not placed by him, but it's done by the people, which shows how much the people of this country adores him. Tu le connais? Huh? Oh, wow. How do you guys call him here?
Ibe.
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 Oh.
This man is the strong man of Burkina.
Strong man of Burkina?
Yeah, strong man.
Oh, wow.
Biggest man of this country.
Is this one?
Yeah.
You know where I can find him?
No, you cannot find this man.
I cannot find him.
You are very strong for that.
It's impossible.
Very impossible. Very
impossible. But I want to see him.
You must die if you want to. You can die if you want to see this man.
I can die if I want to see him.
To see him.
Yeah, I want to see him. I'm looking for him. You don't know anyone who knows him?
That may be a big problem for you. Very big problem.
For me?
For you.
I will try. Bro, they are telling me that it's going to be a very big problem for me. But like I said, I'm not going to give up. So I'm just going to try all I can in order to find him. What a beautiful day out here in Burkina Faso. I'm literally living my best life in this beautiful country, and I'm so glad that you all came along with me just to come see the new visionary leader of this awesome country. But guess what? I am here to confirm all the news that you've been seeing in the media. Listen, it's not just about you, even me. I just want to make sure if it's true or not. So I read on the internet that when His Excellency became the president of this country, there was nothing like a tomato processing plant. But when I came to Ouagadougou, I searched the entire Ouagadougou looking for this tomato plant. But guess what? I was told that Burkina is not just Ouagadougou. His Excellency decided to empower every corner of this beautiful country. Hence, the tomato factory in the second capital of this beautiful country. So, you know what? We had to hire a car. It's going to take us 7 hours to get there. 7 hours to get there. But because of you and because of the truth, we just have to go. So it's more like 3 hours into the journey, and we got hungry and tired at the same time. So we just stopped by. Where are we right now?
Boromo, man.
Is it a city or a town?
It's a city, man.
It's a city?
Yes.
All right. So we're stopping by just to get the natural meal or the authentic meal that everyone eats in this country, which is what? Is it sheep or beef?
This is sheep, man.
We're getting sheep. continue our journey, bro. Yo, you gonna drive? You gonna drive? Yeah. So let's go, bro. This is the side of the videos that we don't show you all. But I feel like as I'm documenting my journey from Ouagadougou to my final destination, I need to let you know what is happening right now. I think in this car we have 8 eyes at the moment. 2 eyes, 2 and 2 at the back. You know what is happening? So we are in the middle of the road. We are almost an hour away from our final destination. It got dark and we just found out that the car that we rented got no light. And we can't stop in the middle of the forest and say we want to fix a car because we are literally like 39 minutes away from our final destination. Watch. Hey, watch. Okay, slow down. Yeah. Oh, Lord. You know, we've been flying with the ramps, yeah? We keep flying off of the ramps because we don't see anything. But pray for us, fingers crossed. We're just going to be there in the next 38 minutes. If you get there, if you are seeing this video, it means that we got to our final destination. Pray for us, man. Burkina Faso grows everything in abundance, despite the fact that this country is hot and dry. In Burkina Faso, they grow tomatoes in abundance, and the fact that His Excellency Ibrahim Traore decided to build a factory to transform the raw materials into a finished good is something that really excites my soul in this country. I finally made it to Sobeto, the tomato processing factory that is right here in Bobo Dioulasso, Burkina Faso, an initiative by His Excellency Ibrahim Traore. This is more like a revolution that is happening in this beautiful country, a revolution of industrializing Burkina Faso. I mean, most of you were thinking it's a lie. That is why I had to travel all the way from Ghana just to come for the fact. This is the raw materials. And what is happening right now, what do you see? It's more like they are sorting the raw materials, wash it, and the process continue. My goodness. Do you know what? I feel like it's possible to develop Africa. No one can tell me anything else. All we need is visionary leaders with integrity, but also have the people at heart. You know what's happening in here? All the people that works in here are literally young people from the country.
Yes, youth, young people all around here. Yeah, just us.
You built a manufacturing plant and you decided to employ the youth.
Exactly.
Is it a youth with qualification that knows how to, operate?
Let's say we have like all in here. We have like qualified. We have like a zero experience. We have like people who never even went to normal school. Yeah.
Why is that?
Attitude at work and the engagement in this vision of the president is the key criteria for us to hire people here.
What is the vision of the president?
The vision is to be ourselves, to be free, to be independent on all the way it means. Yeah, it starts with producing what we consume and consume what we produce.
So it means that you don't export the final product.
Yeah, we are on the way to do it, but focus first is inside.
And this factory does not belong to any investor out of this country, but it belongs to the people of this beautiful country.
100% owned, founded by the people of Burkina Faso from inside and from abroad.
What do you mean by that?
100% no loan. It's like putting together 10,000, 10,000, 1 million safer as shareholding.
You mean the people of this country invested in this tomato factory.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, the smallest share is 10,000 CFA.
So can I ask a question? Like, how many people own this factory then?
Let's say Burkina Faso children.
A round of applause, man. This is something that I never thought it's possible.
Thank you.
But you guys have done it.
Yeah, we have done it.
No foreign investment.
No foreign investment, no bank loan, nothing.
Who came up with this idea?
President of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore.
So the country never had a tomato processing.
Back, let's say in 2000, and this factory unfortunately was closed by that time.
Okay.
And until then, this is the first, let's say, project like processing tomato. Yeah.
How long did it take you guys to build this?
Okay, let's say all the civil constructions and installations, commissioning, training the operators and everything. Let's say the construction took 12 months and the installations and commissionings was like about 3 months. Let's say we also have like a second factory in Yapo.
Oh, wow, this is not the only one.
Same wise. And the president is telling us maybe this year by December, by grace, we will inaugurate the third one in Tenkodogo.
No, wait a minute. You have this factory, which is a tomato factory. Yeah. You have another tomato factory, which is another
in Yapo.
And you are yet to have a third one.
By grace, in December, we will invite you to witness.
Bro, what an incredible initiative. And I hope and believe that we all can learn something from the leader of this beautiful country to replicate in our various countries. I really feel so stressed right now, and I don't even know what to do. I'm more like having a sleepless night in Burkina Faso. Because the goal of this video is to meet Africa's most loved president. I mean, he's done an incredible job that I felt like, as a young African who is on a journey to celebrate African excellence, he's that excellence that entire Africa wants to hear from. I've tried. I've gone through all the networks that I have, and the people that I thought they will even get me closer, I was more like one step closer. As I'm talking to you, all of them have gone quiet on me. One person that I even know that, okay, I saw a picture with this person, and I called her and I said, "Can you please help me?" He said, "I'm sorry, I cannot help you." That's the exact voice that I got. The phone call that I had with her, she said, "Sorry, I cannot help you. And why do you want to meet the president? You should at least say that you want to meet a minister. Why the president?" The passion to tell the positive image of Africa, it's really not easy. It takes a lot for us to bring you all these stories. We're actually on our way to go and see where the tomatoes that feeds the factory comes from. Because we cannot tell a half story. We have to tell you all a full story. So we have to travel for another 1 hour, 30 minutes. Jesus Christ! Please, you didn't sit around. Hey! See? That's what we go through, things that you don't see on camera. Anyway.
To be honest, I used to watch a lot of videos of Maya. I thought he was a guy who traveled the world, enjoying, living his best life. But now that I'm behind the scene, I can see all the difficulties that he's going through every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. It's not. It is really not easy, but we just have to tell the story. But this is crazy, man. So we're on our way to go check out the tomato farm, and the bike literally broke down. So we're just waiting for people to come, beg them for them to jump on. So it is what it is. It's not easy. Like, I don't even know if we'll get there. This part of Burkina seems to be the breadbasket of this beautiful country because they produce every crop that you can name in this world. Listen, where I have got cashew, pepper, tomatoes, onions, mangoes. Mention it. That's incredible, man. It's my first time in Burkina Faso, and I must say that indeed, Burkina Faso is the breadbasket of West Africa because every single crop that we consume in our various countries are producing here in a large quantity. But guess what? If you have a visionary leader, he will tell you that it's about time for us to add value to all our raw material. See, I had to come and check where the tomato comes from. See, you got everything in here. And how does this produce move from the farm to the factory? This is what I mean if I tell you that the entire country of Burkina Faso is under construction, because every corner that I pass in this beautiful country, there are more like road constructions going on.
Exactly. We have more projects right now, and I was telling, since I was born, and since the independence of Burkina Faso, we only have 3,000 kilometers of paved roads.
Are you kidding me? You mean the entire country?
Since the independence.
So now?
Till now.
Only
3,000 kilometers of paved roads.
So what is happening now?
Now, our new president has the willing to really build the roads. They even bought all the equipment, all the necessary equipment to build every corner of our country. As you can see, like this, we have so many corners right now that are in building.
This is insane. So what he's trying to say is that His Excellency Ibrahim Traore is actually rebuilding his country, because from independence to today, the country can only boast of 3,000 kilometers paved road. But guess what? The equipment that is used to construct the roads in here were actually bought by His Excellency. So which means that the contract is not in the hands of any company.
No, it's the government who is charged to build to construct all the roads.
What is the goal? How many kilometers of roads does he want to achieve in a year?
The goal now is to be able to achieve 5,000 per year.
Kilometers
and notice that
per year.
I said that since the independence, we only had 3,000, but now the goal is to have 5,000 kilometers of paved road every year.
What are you gonna tell your president, bro?
I love him. I love you, Ibrahim Traore.
Your country is currently under construction.
Yes, it is. That's right, it is. It's under construction. Since Traore came to power, the country is under construction. As you see, this is one of the examples that shows the country is under construction.
Yeah.
One of the most important parts about this project of road construction is that it's being done by the Burkina people.
What do you mean? The entire construction?
Yeah.
It's been done by the people of Burkina Faso.
Exactly.
How?
The government bought so many machines, so many machinery for road construction, and they recruited around 400 young people to drive. They would train them to drive this machinery. So it is done by the people of Burkina Faso for the people of Burkina Faso.
is incredible, man, because I believe in the philosophy of Africans are the only people that can build Africa. And that is what His Excellency is doing right now. He's proving my quotes right, because it takes only African to come up with a solution for Africa's problem. Can you believe it? And I am here, and every single person on ground is actually a Burkinabe. The construction is being done by the people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane, bro. This is becoming tougher than I expected. But what are you even expecting, Wadamaya? That is the president of the land. You think it's going to be easy? It's been very challenging. I feel like giving up. I'm using all the network that I have, but I just realized that there was a football match that happened in here on His Excellency's birthday, and I saw Adebayo in there. So I'm now decided to use my network, which is the former captain of the Black Star, Asamoah Gyan. So I just spoke to Asamoah Gyan, and I'm asking Asamoah Gyan to help me get a contact that is close to His Excellency. So he's telling me I should give him 24 hours. So the next 24 hours, I'm gonna call him once again. Bro, this is not easy, man. But we will never give up. Let's keep going. Almost close to our dreams, because this is the office of the Foreign Minister of Burkina Faso. Listen, I'm even shaking right now because I feel like the dream is about to come to pass. But everybody told me it's impossible, but I hate to give up. We are more like a step closer. That's the AES flag, the Sahara flag. I can't wait to touch the passport. I'm sure the minister might get the passport in this office, bro. Bro, never give up on your dreams, man. Cross our fingers, start praying. Let the Almighty God touch the heart of the minister to take me to His Excellency. I really love what I see, man. It's more like a revolution happening in the entire country. I mean, like I said earlier, if you have a visionary leader, everything literally falls in place. Can you believe it? The country produces tomatoes in abundance, and they decided to convert the tomatoes into a finished goods. So when you visit the country, when you come across different supermarkets in the countries, and it's so beautiful to see tomato paste that is made and produced in the country by the people and for the people on different shelves. Can you believe it? It's just absolutely beautiful. I mean, I was in this factory, and the tomato paste that they produce in there is called Adia, and they have 2 factories that are functional at the moment, and the second factory is Sofato. I just want to see the name that they will come up with for the 3rd factory that they are building. I want to ask you a question. What does your country produce? Whatever your country produces, are they converting into a finished goods? Let me know in the comment section. Welcome to Burkina Faso.
Am I ready?
Bro, the call is finally here. It tested me. But the thing is that there's a communication background because he speaks French, I speak English, and my translator is not even in at the moment, so I need to look for someone else and call him right back. You want to see? This is the outfit that I'm wearing. This is the clothes that I brought just in case if I meet His Excellency. But today's my last day, and I'm not sure whether I'll be able to meet him. But my father taught me one thing: always have faith. So on my last day in Ouaga, I decided to put on my white outfit. The victory of Wadamaya is coming. Oh God, and I keep testing, man. Yes. No one speaks French yet? It's lost.
I feel be very nice.
Shout out to 1981 clothing for this outfit. I appreciate you, man. If we make history, we're gonna make history together, but you have to give me commission for that. Why on this day?
Also, we have a milk processing factory.
Oh, wow.
There will be 5 of them. One of them is already functional in Ouagadougou.
In this factory, they convert the raw milk into butter, cheese, yogurt, and fresh milk for people to consume. This is what happens when you get yourself a revolutionary leader who believes in the dreams and ideologies of his people. You're a YouTuber. Yes. More like a Francophone YouTuber. Should I say the biggest female YouTuber in the Francophone world? Bonsoir, comment ça va?
Bonsoir, Wade. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's a pleasure meeting you.
It's such a pleasure.
Wow.
You've been such an inspiration for all these years.
I think I made it in life. But is it your first time in Burkina Faso?
No, it's actually the second time.
The second time?
Right.
When was the first time that you came in here?
It was 2021 for the wedding of one of my very good friends.
And then you're back here in 2025?
Right.
Do you see any changes so far?
I would say I see changes. I see changes in the mindset of young Burkinabe. I can see them start thinking differently.
Okay.
I see changes in respecting the rules.
Wow.
You know the challenges when it comes to respecting the rules.
His Excellency is on a journey to decolonize his country. Anything in this country that celebrates the colonizers, he makes sure he changes it. This boulevard that you see right behind me was once named after
Charles de Gaulle,
who was also a colonizer.
Yes.
So what happened? The name has been changed now.
Yeah, definitely.
Who changed it?
The president Ibrahim Traore.
Oh, wow. He changed it to what?
Captain Thomas Sankara.
That's impressive, man.
Yes.
So, which means that since independence,
yes,
this road has been celebrating
a colonizer.
A colonizer.
Yeah.
And he decided to change it.
Yes.
How does that make you feel as a Burkinabe?
It makes us feel proud. Yeah. So proud because we have a road named after a Burkinabe. And it's not any Burkinabe, a great Burkinabe, a leader, you know, and a philosopher, Thomas Sankara.
Like your president?
Yes, I do.
What do you love about your president?
Because it's making the country feel proud, and people now start to believe in the country.
Oh, wow.
Before, we want to move to any other country because we feel like our country was like hell, going to hell. But nowadays, we feel even the hot weather, we don't feel like it's not hot anymore. It's good for us now, you know.
Les étudiants l'ont entendu des heures durant. Il commençait d'ailleurs.
The next one concerning the gowns of the judges and the lawyers means in the justice system, the judges and the lawyers must wear the gowns made in Burkina Faso using a fabric made in Burkina Faso. Now all the schools, the uniform for the students, for the from primary up to high school, they have to use a locally made fabric for the school uniform. This is a very big one also. So this is it aims to support the local industry in the textile. Also, it gives like an identity to the students or the students of Burkina Faso.
I really tried my possible best, but I believe that it was not the right time. But hold on, I will be back. It's been 18 days in search of His Excellency, but I would say that it was more like a mission field. But for me, it's more like delay is not denial. I still have hope. We're gonna continue. Listen, if you made it to this far, why not like the video, subscribe, and be part of this awesome channel. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one. But that will surprise you all. So stay tuned. This is the moment that we say goodbye, but I'll be back.
All right, so that was good stuff, you know, and as usual, Wody Maya, you know, he comes through with the excellent, you know, content, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right there. Let me know what y'all think. Get the likes up, and peace. Catch you guys next time.